Thought you ran away.
I ran out.
Morning. Thanks for coming out so early. Are you looking for the Olympics event?
Sir?
There's multiple events here this morning, so thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming out so early. I feel like people are still adjusting to that. If you haven't met me yet, I'm Vicky. I started Compiler. We're a small software consultancy. Our offices are here at Lacey, and we're big fans of Lacey, who's given us the space for 6 or 7 years now. But yeah, welcome to Data and Donuts. I have a couple of very exciting announcements this morning, which is that we're going to have a happy hour. Finally got our stuff together to do a holiday happy hour. So we'll send out the invites to that. It'll be downtown at Boomtown Brewery. And UCLA has an event coming up you might also be interested in. This is an online webinar that's relevant to today's topic. And for those of you who don't know, CoMotion is also happening this morning over at the Little Tokyo. The free for government employees, so those of you who might happen to have some free time can wander over there this morning. A couple of jobs, these go up afterwards. If you're interested, grab a picture or we'll send you the direct links for these. Our favorite jobs boards, I know a lot of you are always looking, asking about this. And yeah, I'm personally very excited to introduce Zach this morning. I read Paved Paradise last year, so I've been a little obsessed with parking. So if you've noticed, this is not our first time bringing somebody out to talk about parking. We even reached out to SFMTA last time, which was super, super exciting. If you missed that one, the recording's up on our website. It's one of my favorite talks we've ever hosted. So now I'll turn it over to Scott to talk about Los Angeles.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. Today, I'll be talking a little bit about Code the Curb, and then we're really a curb management program, so how do we manage the future of LA's curbs? So really quickly, who am I? My name is Zackary Campos. Just quick background, my background is in urban and regional planning, and studied some geography and GIS, but I joined LADOT in 2019. I work within our Transportation Policy and Planning Division, and I do a number of different data focused things, such as our Healthy Streets LA dashboard, also work on our capital investment planning initiatives. But today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Code the Curb, which is the project that I'm the project manager for. So what we'll be talking a little bit about today, just kind of 5 things: the foundation, how we got here, the engine that really drives this curb machine, the data streams that integrate and feed this, our platform, and then just what do we do with all of this data and how do we use it for the future, like the Olympics and our vision for the future. So starting off with some background, Code the Curb is LADOT's comprehensive digital first program to inventory, manage, and try and optimize our curb space. So we're really taking the view of our static information, think of our parking policies that has traditionally been as a street sign, and then trying to digitize it into something that's a little bit more machine readable and something that's future proof. But this idea isn't really novel. We've had this idea for well over a decade, and really we've made incremental changes, but really started with our parking reform group and working towards different pilots and projects to try and learn how we can further curb management through digital tooling. But this was really, this project that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about was really made possible a lot through the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation Grant, or SMART. So this was a federally funded grant that LADOT was awarded back in 2023. This allowed us to accelerate and really pilot Code the Curb. And really, this was just one award that we received, but nationwide there were a number of cities like Seattle, Portland, Boston, all that received a curb management grant to pilot very similar work. So this has been instrumental for facilitating collaboration across the nation. So One thing I'll also plug, I know Vicky mentioned that that we've got CoMotion not too far from here. Also plug that many of the same professionals that are working in this space will also be attending that. So if you like what you see here today and have additional questions and want to see different perspectives beyond LA, I would also kind of plug that, and you might find some professionals there to meet. But the goal of the project for SMART is to apply one of 8 different categories to improve transportation regionally. So we focused our pilot on downtown LA. We focused mostly because it has a diverse mix of uses. It's highly complex. We see it's a logistical hub where we see a lot of deliveries, pickups, drop-offs of passengers, and so it lends itself really well to try and use and pilot a number of these digital tools to understand how users are interacting with the curb, which is maybe a data set that we haven't traditionally really dived into deep enough. So Code the Curb has, I would say, 5 key goals. Primarily, we're focusing on safety. Where are violations occurring? Where are folks using the curb improperly? Whether that's parking in a bike lane, double parking to make a delivery, or occupying a travel lane when they shouldn't. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the use of real-time data that I'll get into in a little bit. If we can help direct users towards the curb where there is availability, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then also promoting equitable curb access, so ensuring that we are making space for our transit users, for our rideshare users, folks that rely on Uber or Lyft, and then even just our active transportation and pedestrian first. So we want to be sure that we are taking a look at the curb and allowing equitable access. And then the last 2 are increasing parking compliance and then better curb management. So we'll talk a little bit about how we do that through CDS and digitizing our policies. So I think we'll do questions later. Yeah, I can provide I have a spot for Q&A, so. Okay. The technical engine is really built on CDS, which is the Curb Data Specification. The Curb Data Specification is, again, developed with the Open Mobility Foundation. This is that the collaborative that many cities are a part of. Really what it is it's a common language that we all speak. It's a way for us to digitize our static sign or parking meter and regulation and make it into a machine readable format. That way we can share that information, standardize it, and make sure that everyone's on the same page. And so we can think of something like there's a no parking sign from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and we have a number of totem poles of parking signage, but this way we can really make it more unambiguous and then machine readable. So thinking to the future towards new mobility devices that may need to interact with the curb. CDS is built on 3 different APIs, or application programming languages. At the core of it is the Curbs API, which allows real-time events to basically be aggregated to a particular zone. So it is built to have a number of different categories. You can have the zone, an area of aggregation if we want to take a look at several different corridors, or we can focus on an individual space, think of a parking meter or something to that effect. And all of this is basically what feeds into our other specifications, such as our metrics, and our events. So the next API, which is the events API, is our real-time and historic event data. And it's generated through our sensors, through data that we have through parking meters. And you can imagine these are like company feeds, our meters, and that all is tied to a specific event that is occurring at the curb. And then lastly is the metrics API, which is really just the way that we synthesize the two previous APIs. So if you think of a zone being a physical space that is painted yellow for loading, we can track those events and then aggregate it using this API. So I know that was probably a lot, but this is the workflow for how a lot of that information is combined. You have what starts on the right side, which are the events. So you have a vehicle that is doing a loading or dropping off a particular parcel that has attribute data such as what type of vehicle is it, did they pay, what sensor picked up this information, and then we tie that back to a particular zone. So we know that this happened right out here on Hewitt Avenue, and we can determine whether or not the policy there is that the event that happened there was legal or not based off of the policies that are associated to that zone. And then again, metrics API gives us information about like the events, dwell time, occupancy. It really synthesizes that information. So next, we'll talk about the data stream. So what really informs a lot of this is work that's been done through our contractors. So I want to give a shout out to Curb Automotus. Curb is responsible for developing our curb zones and doing a lot of the hard labor of surveying the data and creating the parking policy. So they manage our APIs. Automotus captures data about our real-time smart zones, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. But then the other data source that we use are our own internal data through parking meters and citations to really identify where events are happening at the meters, and then citations for where violations may be occurring, and creating unsafe spaces for users of the curb. So this is, I mentioned really quickly, but Curb has done a curb level surveying, meaning they've gone out into the field, taken photos of our assets, digitized hundreds of miles of curbs, and integrated it into their platform, creating those zones that I was talking about. But we can think about all of the assets that really are in the public right-of-way that we're interested in. We want to know what are the quality of our assets. We want to know where they exist. What are the policies? And so I was talking a little bit about what those totem poles look like. I'm sure we've all seen them. But that can be a pretty difficult sign to understand. And so some of the work that they've done is to make that a little bit more machine readable, but also human readable. And then just a couple of other assets that they have collected for us as well. Some of the other data that we're collecting is for curb monitoring. So you can think of this as the events data that I was describing in the CDS events. We have our parking meters. And then on the right side, these are our citations where we have seen folks park illegally in red curb zones. One thing to note is that these data sets give us an insight of what is happening at the curb, but they don't paint the full picture, right? We can't fully rely on where citations are being given to know where violations are occurring. Like we can understand that they are occurring there, but it doesn't give us the full picture of what is always happening there, because that is only a point in time, and if there was a citation given. Otherwise, we don't particularly know what might be happening at the curb. Same goes for our meters. They can only capture data for the spaces that they are assigned to. So that kind of leads us to the other aspect of this project, which is using smart zones. So we've also partnered with Automotus to collect data on the curb. So we've installed 26 cameras as part of this project that have a number of different regions of interest that monitor and detect whether or not vehicles are parked within its field of view, and then determining based on how they're staying at the curb, if they're staying there for a prolonged period of time, we register that as an event. And then for this particular spot is near Crypto Arena on Pico Boulevard, and this should be a no stopping zone. So we're monitoring to ensure the compliance with the curb policies here. And then this is just a quick overview of those cameras that I've described. The green spots show real-time data of where spaces are being occupied. Those red circles are where we see those violations, and one of those that I was talking about is on Pico. But you can see double parking violations and so forth. So I'll talk a little bit about the platform. So this is our public web page, APIs, and data insights. So this is a quick overview of the Curb IQ platform. So as I was mentioning earlier, you'll see those totem poles, as I like to call them, but we have a public-facing web page that you can also visit there if any of you are interested in, that gives information about the policies at any given time. So for instance here, we're showing the different curb typologies that one might be interested, whether that is passenger loading, if it's a EV parking space, bus loading, and so forth. But on the right-hand side, we have the parking policy information and whether or not you're able to park within a given area at a time. And then for operations, how we can use this is we can also understand from a planning perspective, what do our curbs look like and what sort of policies are being applied. So in this particular space, we're looking at Little Tokyo. Again, you can go see some of this stuff if you go to CoMotion, which is taking place in Little Tokyo, but this has a number of supply spaces that we've defined, and we can see that any changes in policies. This particular area doesn't, I think, change during time of day, but we have 1,400 spaces. 295 of those spaces are paid parking. We have 21 passenger loading spaces and some 4 EV parking spaces. So just to name a few things that are happening in this area, but it gives us tools to plan accordingly if we need to change or reallocate policy to accommodate new uses at the curb. And then some of the data that we also collect, as I was mentioning, through the events API and some of the data that we're getting through Automotus, is we can really drill down into what do parking events look like by duration. So this is by mode, and we see that really most of the trips are short trips, either anywhere from 0 to 10 minutes. And there are a number of trips that are kind of at the end that skew it a little bit, but those are mostly folks that are doing construction that we've noticed in downtown area and using some of our spaces. But yeah, we also have insights into what type of vehicles are using the curb. So we can break it down by freight, delivery, car, or bus. One thing to also note is that as part of this, we're not doing any enforcement. This is strictly for research purposes and understanding what the curb looks like. I do want to note that as one of the things with the SMART grant is we're not going to be penalizing anyone, but it's really to help us understand and make appropriate policy decisions. And then at the bottom, I just provided a couple of additional insights of what are the average parking events for our smart zones, and how many do they see per day? What is the average duration? So we're seeing about close to 26 minutes, close to half an hour of park duration. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the violations. So again, we're not penalizing people, but we want to understand where violations are occurring. As I mentioned, there are gaps that we have in, say, our citation data. If a citation wasn't issued, we don't know where and how frequently some of these citations are occurring. But the smart zones that we're collecting data from gives us some more insights into how frequently those are happening, who are the offenders, like by mode, whether it's freights, it's generally cars is what we see, and again, if we're seeing deliveries or other sort of modes using this. Oh, and yeah. Again, I would just kind of point towards, like, we are seeing the average duration be 11 minutes and 45 seconds for those violations, but it is a bit skewed because of those trips that are taking a little longer. The median is closer to around 6 minutes, so it's about half the time. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the APIs. So I've mentioned to you a lot about what we've done with the APIs and being able to build them out, but we've also made this publicly accessible for our operators who do work in downtown. So this is just a really quick output of what one could expect with a query to the APIs. So just wanted to kind of highlight what that is. We have it separated into our policies and our zones APIs, and we facilitate that through an API key. You can request that there. And Curb IQ is the one that manages that API access. But there's documentation on how to query that data, how to programmatically get information about the curb that we've been discussing here today. And then lastly, just want to talk a little bit about the future, how we're using this data, and yeah. So really, I think we're preparing for the world stage 2028 Olympics. We're testing a number of use cases for how we can use this to facilitate management of large-scale events. One of the things that we're working alongside with our contractors is modeling what does that look like? What are the impacts to the curb during these large-scale events? And what does the data tell us? And we're currently in the midst of diving deeper into that data, but we will be generating a report for that to really drill into those insights that I'm describing. And how do we use this again for the 2028 Olympics? We're already using it for a number of planning processes to understand just the layouts of our curbs. And because we do have Crypto Arena, which is within our project area, that's one of the places that we're really focusing our efforts to. And then in the future, we would scale this up to additional areas that have games venues. And so there's some other work around that we're trying to facilitate. And then lastly is, I think this has been mostly creating that inventory and understanding data, but long term, we want to move more towards, a dynamic space that is more flexible, that can more easily and more quickly facilitate any changes that are necessary at the curb. So, being responsive to any changes in demand at the curb, whether that's being more delivery spaces or loading zones are required, or passenger drop-offs for a particular event. We're looking towards the future on how these tools can be used for the digital management of curbs. but we're still a little ways away from that. But I did have a Q&A slide and info slide, but it didn't get transferred here, but that's okay. I think that concludes my presentation, and I'll open it up to questions.